All right, hello, welcome. We are having our second Women in STEM panel. This is, let's see, live. We are December 4th, and we have Andrea Artman, Angie Rosado, and Lark Amoa with us today. This is Woman to Woman Mentoring's Women in STEM Mentorship Program, and our goal is to help women students, women undergrads, connect with women STEM professionals, and with the further goal through Million Women Mentors, which is a movement to help women pursue and persist in STEM careers and STEM education. So this is part of that, and one of our goals with this project is just to give STEM students access to as many STEM professionals as possible. We have some really amazing STEM women in our community and lots of great STEM employers that we want everyone to learn about. So that's a little bit of what we're going to do today. So let's get right into it, and I'll just let each of you introduce yourselves. Oh, let me add on, if you are a STEM undergrad woman and you're looking for a mentor, you can go to our website, womantowomanmentoring.org, and we've got our applications there. It's a free program. You can be matched with a mentor. We've got monthly workshops and things where STEM women are all coming together. And we're running as a virtual program right now. So if you are a student or a resident of Frederick County, you're eligible for that and be matched with a mentor. So reach out if that's something you're interested in. Okay, who wants to go first? Andrea does. Great. Thanks, Andrea. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Andrea Artman. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in bioengineering from the University of Toledo. So I actually grew up in the Midwest in Michigan and went to school in Ohio. I actually came out here 3 different times to Maryland during my career so far. We'll just say so far. First was an internship for my undergrad, and I worked in Laurel, Maryland for about 6 months. And then I moved back to finish school, and then I actually moved back to work at FDA was my first position. So I was in Silver Spring at FDA for a couple of years. And then I moved back out to be in industry for a while. I moved out to the Midwest. And then I came back again to start to work for another company. And from there, I really got plugged into Frederick County. I quit my position in Columbia and started my own business. So I'm a business owner in Frederick, Maryland, doing regulatory and quality consulting for medical device companies. So that's what I'm doing right now. I recently ran for public office in a recent election. Unfortunately, it didn't go very well, but that's okay. Won't be my last, probably. That was for the Board of Education. And so, yeah, I'm living and loving Frederick, Maryland, building a business.
Wonderful. Okay, so tell me, was your path what you thought it would be? Like, were all those ins and outs and stops and starts and changes what you predicted they would be as an undergrad, say as a 20-year-old? Is that what you thought would happen?
So no, to be honest, I didn't have a path. So
okay.
I talk to a lot of our young people now, and they're like, I'm going to do this and this and this. And I was like, wow, I wish I had that much foresight in my life. But honestly, if I'm being honest, my life was a bunch of like, okay, this is what's in front of me and I'm going to take it. So I started in engineering because I wanted to go to med school. I had someone come and talk to us, and they said, bioengineering is a really good path to go to med school. They like the way they teach you how to think. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Let's do that. So I did that, and I was supposed to graduate in 2008, and the job market sucked, probably like it does. Well, probably not as bad as it does today, but it was not a good job market. So and I ended up getting my master's degree because it was available. The same school offered to pay for my tuition. And so I said, yes, we'll do that. And from there with FDA, I had no idea what I was getting into. I did not know what regulatory science was. I mean, I knew what the FDA was, but I didn't know exactly what they did. So day one, they were like, hey, review this. And I was like, 4. And they were like, for compliance. And I said 2. And they're like, for regulation. And I was like, where is that? Like, I had no idea what was going on. And honestly, we didn't really talk about it in school either. To which I then called my dean a while later and said, hey, you should probably teach this stuff. And yeah, so from there, I had my son, and I was like, I need help from my family, and I don't want to be on the East Coast. And so I moved. And then Maryland pulled me back. So here I am. And I never thought I'd be a business owner. I never thought I'd be running for office. That was never, ever on my plan at all. So life is definitely full of surprises. And you know,
right.
Throughout your life.
Right. Yes. Very good. Thank you. Lark, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, hey everyone, my name is Lark. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Stevenson University. I'm currently a quality control analyst for a biopharmaceutical company. And like my road to get here was very like bumpy. But ultimately my goal is to be a physician. I currently am applying to medical school for this cycle, as well as some postbacs and masters just as a backup plan. But before I became a quality control analyst, I centered my whole like job thing around becoming a physician. So I like every job I took because I wanted to see different aspects of the healthcare field. So one of my jobs, I worked for an FDA consulting company. Andrea was saying, this guy I knew because I used to like nanny his kids. He started one because he worked for the FDA and then he wanted to do his own thing. So I worked for him and I kind of got to see like the regulatory sides of things and how you have to prepare everything like perfectly in order for it to get passed through the FDA. And then I worked as a medical scribe in the ER so that I could get like firsthand experience working with a physician in the ER because that was my specialty of interest, which is really fun. And I can go into these jobs later, in more detail later. But then I became a certified pharmacy technician to see like the drug side of things and also patient interaction, but also to see how you kind of help patients like stick to their drug regimen, basically. And then as a quality control analyst now, also on the drug side of things, but actually like making the drug and seeing how it, you know, you have to get every little aspect of it perfect because someone's literally taking this medicine. And now I'm applying to medical school and hopefully we'll see how that goes. And yeah, that's like what I'm doing now.
So did you have a plan, you know, jumping off of something Andrea was saying, were you like, oh, okay, here would be jobs that would be good along my path? Or was it kind of like, oh, this thing, you know, this summer job or this summer job, this one takes me there, this one doesn't? Or did you kind of have that mapped out?
I kind of had it mapped out, but not like exactly. Like I knew for a fact I wanted to do medical scribe because that's one of the things they don't require, but they kind of require you to do. I also shadowed a doctor, forgot to mention that, but I didn't get paid for that. So I kind of mapped everything out, but I also it came to me. So like the pharmacy technician thing, for example, was kind of like, oh, I saw and I was like, ooh, you know, to have a certification on my resume would be good. It's still in the healthcare field and I get to see different aspects of healthcare. So some things came to me, but some of it I did have mapped out because, you know, you kind of have to have a plan to get into school.
Right. Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Angie, tell us a little bit about you.
So I'll start with, I didn't have a plan. I went to school at the University of Connecticut, up in Connecticut. I lived in New England and Connecticut for most of my life. And I went to school and got a degree in molecular and cellular biology with a concentration in genetics. I liked science. I then started working in different biotech companies, mostly on the biologics side of things versus the small molecule, and working in different aspects as a bench scientist. And eventually I came to Maryland and started working for biotech companies down here. Pretty much I've always worked in some sort of biopharmaceutical company throughout my career. And eventually my road led to me into IT. So I now work in IT as a solution architect. And I develop and install systems for the scientists to do their studies and all that. And as a 19-year-old, if you would have said I was working in IT one day, I would have been like, you're crazy, because that's something I would never do, right? I never thought I'd be in IT. And now I'm an IT professional, and it actually is a great fit for me. And I didn't know that as a young person that was the way to go. And I don't have an IT education background. Everything I've learned on the job. So, but the biggest thing about this is that, and I was told actually this week talking to another mentor / coach person that, and yes, older people also have mentors and coaches. So
Great
that,
point.
so, that my skill set is very unique, and the reason why I did why I do what I'm doing is because most IT people don't understand science, and so to be able to understand IT and understand science and to bridge that gap between both sides so that the solutions are fit for purpose for both the scientists and from an IT security and all that quality, all that perspective is what basically I want to do. And so, like I said, I didn't realize at 19 that this was something that would be that I do. And my road is very different. I mean, there's ups and downs. I ended up in Maryland I was laid off, and then you had to find a job, and I came to Maryland for that job. That's how I came here, because things happened. And in this industry, things change a lot. Companies are constantly downsizing and upsizing depending on what's going on in the market and all that, especially smaller companies. Even the pharmaceutical companies, they have to adjust to what's going on. Patents go off, everything changes. So being able to, I think one of the things I would say as an advice is being able to understand that it's going to change, and being able to change with it and grow with it is going to be important. But so that's basically me. So I'm now considered a solution architect. That's my job, and I'll stop there for now. So
Okay. So I really see a theme, and I've heard this a lot of times from other mentors of, yes, you can have a plan or an idea, but you also have to be open to opportunities and suggestions that other people make along the way. And it sounds like each of you had some experience with that. So I'm wondering, of those people, have you had along the way, Angie, you just mentioned a mentor, coach type person that you're talking to, that you're working with now. Have you at various points of your career had people who have kind of come up alongside you to be part of that, advice or ideas or opportunities? Or did you feel like you were kind of figuring it out on your own as you went?
For me specifically, I got very lucky when I moved into my current position, in the fact that, because again, when I took this position, I went directly from the lab to an IT position. And the person who I ended up replacing, which was not my intent when I took the job, I thought that person would be there. So my 5-year plan went to 5-day plan. So literally, so it was a male at the time. He actually took it upon himself to mentor me, and he left the company, but he still met with me every Wednesday at 6.
Oh, wow.
And because he knew I was like, I was learning things on the fly. I had, like I said, I didn't have an IT background. All of a sudden I'm working IT. I'm supposed to be solutioning things. And I'm like, what's going on here? I don't know what servers are, all that stuff. And so luckily he actually, and I didn't ask him, he volunteered to help me out. He didn't want to leave me in the lurch, as you say. And so that was a very, like I said, I got lucky in that situation. But I think that that also taught me was to find those people anyways. It's kind of like, find your network. And he left me with a bunch of other people to talk to. Like, he gave me an entire list of, if you need this is the person you go to. And so doing that for myself, and I now do that. I pay it forward, I guess. I do that for other people. And I've done that through, when I was in college and struggling, people take me to dinner. Now I take other struggling students to dinner, because it's kind of like the cycle of helping each other out and empowering each other and moving forward. Because everybody, starts, one place and moves up as they move on. And then I got into a program at my company where they have a Women as Leaders program. And so that's where this mentoring coaching is coming from. And I also got a mentor from somebody else in the company. And a lot of the people they talk to will say that you should have mentors of all ages, older and younger than you. Like, I'm an older person. I'm in the middle, I guess, now of the range. So, looking to younger people too, younger people can also help mentor older people. Like, I'm not that old, but and what's going on, because as technology changes, as things go on, there's different things we can learn from each other, and that's getting a more well-rounded understanding of what's going on. And I also work for global companies, so culturally understanding how different things work was something that I learned a lot about in the past in this position, because I had never worked with a very global company. Most everybody had been in the US, and now I work with people from all over the world, and that's a different skill set that you have to have in order to navigate between different groups and how to get everybody to come to the table. Most of what I do, I'm going to move to your question about what I do on a daily basis, weekly basis, is I collaborate and help people understand what's going on. Without going into like technical details about what I do, essentially that's what I do. I know I have a lot of meetings, and again, that's something I never thought when I was 20 I'd be in so many meetings, but that seems to be what happens nowadays. To work with people to get, the answers, to help people see what needs to help people with quality and compliance, because that's something that not everybody, as Andrew pointed out, all of a sudden they get shoved into this position and go, how do I do this? And I've been working in the GXP world for both as a scientist and now in the IT side. So that's something that I try to help people navigate. But so on a daily basis, it can change, but mostly it's about communication, interacting with people, networking, and being able to just bring everybody to the table together.
Great, thank you. Lark, tell us, have you had people, you mentioned someone who you knew through a nannying job who offered you an opportunity. Have you had people along the way who have kind of, been part of that journey and process with you, or have you been kind of figuring it out as you go?
I've had both. My sister actually just graduated from med school last year. So I've had her, but of course, like she was busy in med school. So I only had her for, she could only do so much. And then I have an uncle who's an anesthesiologist, but again, he's an anesthesiologist, so he only helped me so much. So like certain times I was able to contact them and they could, speak on the phone to me for like a little bit, but a lot of times I had to like maneuver myself. But they also, like I said, I, have found a way to network. Like I used to babysit his kids and he introduced me to that. And then I forgot to mention that he also started another company doing clinical trials for stem cell therapy. So that's how I got into that. So a lot of this job or a lot of being in the science field is networking in any field really. But if you do want to go far, you do want to get other opportunities that you think you might not have gotten before, like networking is the key. So you can't really be shy. You kind of got to put yourself out there. Or even if you accidentally just bump into like I would have known like from nannying someone's kids, I would get into what I got into. But you can find help along the way if you don't have someone like a sister or an uncle that's at like arm's reach. So yeah.
Right.
That's kind of how I got into it.
Okay. And I think we hear a lot of, those opportunities are out there and there may be people who approach you or things that you hear about, but then only you can actually take that step to do the follow-up and participate in the thing. So Andrea, how about you? Have you had people along the way kind of helping you make those decisions and finding opportunities, or have you figured it out on your own?
Not had mentors really. Now that I own my own business, I work sometimes with one of my ex-bosses who feeds me work, which is really nice when your ex people know you well enough to want to give their
Yes.
So I was like, oh, I must have done an okay job. But growing up, I didn't have, like, no one I knew in my family went to college, and there were no professionals in my life. And so my parents always, you need to go to college, and that was it. That was the end of
that was the guidance. Go to college.
Go to college. And so even throughout, there's been people obviously who've helped me get jobs or have helped me, it's always helpful to know someone at the company that you want to go to, because they can talk to whoever they need to talk to get you there. But as far as mentoring and things like that, the best advice has actually a lot of times come from strangers. So I went to this training in California, and it was this like all immersive thing, and it was ridiculous. It was from the Center of Creative Leadership, and they pretty much like put you in as VP of this company, and it like felt so real, even though you knew it wasn't. And you were trying to like save people's jobs or cut people and do this and do that, and trying to make sure that like, the business kept running, and it was pretty crazy. And the one guy looked, he goes, this really what you want to do with your life? And I was like, actually, no. And so it's like, just like people, like, they look at, they don't have any skin in the game, and they can give you honest feedback. And, like, I was miserable. And so it's really just taking advice when it comes, and it might not always be right at that moment where you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. But like putting it in the back of your mind and really ruminating on some of the stuff. And I don't mean every stupid little thing that people say, because you're going to hear a lot of noise as well. But just really understanding that sometimes when people say things to you and you want to immediately discount it, there might be some truth there. And those are the hardest lessons I think I learned, and those were the best mentoring I had, even though at times it doesn't always feel like it's in your best interest.
Right. Okay, great advice there. Okay, so Angie, you started talking a little bit about, what you do, how you spend your time. So if you kind of look at, what are some of the roles at your work? What are some of the things that happen in your daily, weekly, monthly activities? What does it mean to do what you do?
Did you say Angie or Andrea?
Angie, we'll start with you because you started going there a little bit. So
I
let's just.
Angie, I'm like, let me double check. Sometimes people call me Andy or Andrea too. So.
Oh.
Yeah. The roles that I played throughout my career, I've throughout my career, I played a lot of different roles. And currently in the job that I am, like I said, I do wear a lot of hats. It's kind of like, although I have a particular role as a solution architect, a lot of times currently I'm not doing a lot of architecture work. I'm doing a lot more of business analysis or quality or support, all the different aspects of a system in order to get a system in place. So, and my actually the head of architecture says that architects should be able to do all that stuff, but essentially it's more collaboration and being able to work with people. Like I said, is my role. What do I do? It's a good question. No, I'm kidding. So I have a lot of meetings with people to understand. Mostly I work on projects, so there's a lot of project meetings to talk about, the business requirements and what the business needs from a system and things like that, in order to be able to deliver on that. And then part of it's project management to help plan the activities and tasks in order to get to that point, and a lot of follow-up with people to ensure that things are getting done if there's blockers or things that they can't do, and then connecting them with the appropriate people within the organization to remove those blockers. So that's it's a lot of meetings for all different types of activities. It definitely is a lot. What I do now is it's very people focused versus when I was 20, I was very lab bench focused. I thought my career I'd be in the lab. I thought about being a doctor, but I was more interested in the diseases than the people. And I thought that might be better to work in the lab than, not that I don't care about people, but it was just one of those things. I'm like, oh, you have this? No, that wouldn't be a good bedside manner. So I thought it'd be a lot, like I said, the people aspect is something that I developed over time. Not that I was not unfriendly, but it was definitely more focused on being an individual versus now my role is more being part of a matrix of people that work together. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's essentially what I do without explaining in detail what I actually do. So.
Okay. So I like what you said before of, you're coming into this with the science background, not necessarily with the tech background, but then you're able to, as you're learning the tech and you've learned over the years, you're able to be that connecting piece between what the scientists are saying and what they need and what the tech end is saying and what they're trying to deliver and help that match happen. So have you, are there times that you really feel like that, kind of middle child between like, okay, scientists and tech people, here's how we say this thing in like a way that we all understand?
Yes. So I definitely have to translate for each side, the best way to put it. And definitely in the IT world, and that's one of the things I learned when I moved into IT, is that most IT people do not understand science. So working at a company where science is a big deal, or understanding drug development or things like that, the IT people don't understand that, and having the ability to speak science, it's what one IT person told me, the scientists will love you because you speak science. And scientists, their faces immediately light up when you say you have a science background. Like, oh, thank God, somebody that I can talk to. So that's definitely a niche skill and a niche set that not many people have. And so I've been lucky enough to be able to use that to my advantage. Having been a scientist also, I understand what some of their pain points have been, having been on the receiving end of IT. And the other thing to know, and for those that are going into more of the science, directly into the science background, is that one of the things that I was also told by certain people is that you can teach a scientist IT, you cannot teach an IT person science. So when you're working in this kind of world, they look for people with a background in science. Even so, don't think that because you don't have certain backgrounds, whether it's IT or something else that you might think you might come up in something that you might want to do. If you have science as a background, you can move in that direction. You can, work on business relationships for business, or it's kind of like having that background. If you want to stay like in the science world, obviously. That you can cross over into other jobs that are not strictly just being a doctor or working in a lab or things like that. There's a lot more out there for anybody that has a science degree. Even for like Lark, if she ever wants to become a medical director at our company, she can become a physician and come back and lead all the drug development, because that's how things work. So don't think that there's just one way of doing things, and the biggest thing is, don't automatically say that your possibilities are limited, because if you ask, the worst thing they can say is no, and you'll be in the same position where we started, right? But if you don't ask, they can never say yes.
Right. And I think that's really relevant to a lot of students who feel like, I will choose this major and that will determine my destiny. And that's not, we very rarely hear someone that is the thing they always do and the only thing they always do. So I think that's great advice of really, again, back to those finding and taking advantage of opportunities, and other ways to use your skills and knowledge, and not just, the thing that you know about when you're 20 or 22. Great. Thank you, Angie.
Positions change over time too. So like regulatory in my world used to be, not at the FDA, but in industry used to be more administrative. So you would kind of just take other people's information and put it all together and send it off. And it was more typing and just, kind of compiling information. But now they're looking for a lot more technical people to actually be engaged in the development process, which helps me because I'm an engineer. And so again, I'm in the middle as well, translating between FDA and, scientists or engineers, because they want to talk in all their engineer crazy speak. And it's like, okay, but what does that mean from a regulatory perspective? And so translating that so both people understand what each one is saying is like critical. And so the job of a regulatory person has changed, even in 10 years, has really changed in that amount of time. And so, now they are looking for more technical people that are directly related to whatever they're developing, whether it be drugs or medical devices or biologics. And so not only can you move across your career, but the career you think you want today could drastically change while you're still in it. And so being able to be flexible enough to either learn new skills if you want to keep doing what you're doing, and or find something else new if you don't necessarily want to keep doing what you're doing as it changes. But yeah, that translation piece is really important. And so having a science or even engineering background, you have a different skill set than some of the other types of people who, have a really great education, but the way that they think is sometimes different. And so being that person who can think critically can get you a lot of jobs that have nothing to do with science or engineering. And so just keep that in mind as you go through.
And to add on to Andrea's point about, and bringing back to what they can do now, I think, yes, the industry does change. Like in the past 8 years that I've been working in this position, we went from like cloud computing now to all AI and machine learning. So, and that's just like within 5 years, everything changes. So one of the biggest things is to get into a habit of reading articles or looking at what's happening out there in the industry, how things are changing. I think that's very for anybody. in their job to just be up with how those changes are happening in the world around us. You know, when I first started, gene sequencing was the thing, and now you can do that in like 2 seconds. What took like days to finish. So, you know, just being up on what's happening and getting into that habit, and it's something that I've also have to work on, is to just, you know, give yourself time to explore what's going on there, not just get stuck in what you're doing at that time in your job. Because that's how, when an opportunity does come up, all of a sudden somebody makes a comment or statement, you hear something over here, it'll help you to get the inroads. And it'll just help with networking. As Lark said, networking is important, being able to have that conversation. If somebody brings up a topic and you have something about that you'll feel more comfortable approaching them, if you're not necessarily a very outgoing person, if you have at least some you know, some tidbits or whatever to help break the ice with other people.
Very good. Thank you. So Andrea, can we go back to you for a minute and tell us a little bit more? You know, you've mentioned that translation piece, you've mentioned the business piece, the engineering piece. Tell us how those things work into your day, week, month. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, day to day, my life changes very, very quickly. Well, pre-COVID, I guess the biggest thing was getting out and talking to people. Be nice to do that again. But really getting out and meeting people in, you know, the industry or the community or anywhere, you know. So I became a member of the Chamber of Commerce right away. There's just a way to get plugged into your surroundings, and they know people that you don't know, and vice versa. And so that was really what I focus on a lot initially with the new business, and trying to just have people know who I am and know your face and know your, you know, what you do. So I call that, you know, business development or whatever. It was also me getting out of my house, because now I work from home, and even before COVID. So it was, you know, a way to see people and to get out of the very mindset of, you know, work. And so that's a major piece. And then also I do some writing for some technical magazines or publications or something like that. Usually they have a little bio, so you can, you know, kind of give them a little business pitch as well when you write stuff. And so I connected with different groups who are leaders in the industry who have publications that they send out to their entire readership. And so that's a way to get your name out there as well. I do it all as a small business owner. So I do all my invoicing, and I developed my own website. Maybe I should have called Angie for that. And so, you know, I'm learning a lot of new skills that I would have never thought that I would have. I was a very outspoken child, but as I went into my career, I became more and more just silent and got away in the corner. But now I have to market myself, and I have to talk about myself, and I have to walk into some random conversation and introduce myself and pretend like I want to be there and that I'm confident in it. It's gotten a lot easier over time. And so besides that, I type. My kids, Mom, all you do is type. You type. Well, yes. So I read a lot of documents. I read a lot of technical documents. I read a lot of FDA guidances and laws and whatever they're coming out with. And then I write a lot. I type a lot. To the point where sometimes my wrists are like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do a lot of talking and writing, making connections, and, you know, just listening, because you gotta listen for opportunities that come along. And yeah, just, you never know where the opportunities are gonna come. So putting them in the local paper, even though you're like, who's gonna read this? You know, is anybody that does my, you never know. And so, especially in a place like Frederick, you never know who's connected to where. So that's my day-to-day. And now I also make sure my kids are on virtual learning. And that's a major part of my life right now too.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. All right, Lark, let's hear a little bit about your day. What are some of your roles and the activities that take up your time at work?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was so busy nodding my head. I forgot to mention to you guys, I don't even work at AZ anymore. I switched companies.
Oh, I
Angie and
didn't even know
Amy.
that.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Not even realizing what you were saying, but I still work for a biopharmaceutical company. I still do the exact same stuff. So yeah. But basically, for those of you who are still in undergrad, you're going to lab, pipetting, doing stuff like that. I basically do things like that. But I also collect my own samples. So, in school we weren't doing that, but here you'll do that. And then you'll actually test the samples, not even just the ones that you collect, but manufacturing will send you actual like drug samples of like the medicine that we're making, and then we'll test that. And so working in quality, we're making sure that like the drug that we're giving to people is what we're saying it is. We're making sure it's up to like standards, it's up to code, that it's not gonna, cause a reaction to somebody, it's not gonna not work. So that's basically what quality does. And then we also control the environment of the facility that we work in. So, and we do that by doing things like environmental monitoring. So if we say that this room is ISO 5 or this is ISO 7, we maintain that through, cleaning, the amount of personnel that are allowed to be there, the activities that you're allowed to do, the flow of how you enter the area, things like that. And then I do other things, like now that I've been in this industry for a little bit longer, I've taken on more leadership roles, so I can review and sign off on data. I can write deviations, edit SOPs, things like that. So a lot of this job is hands-on things, but I've taken a lot of other skills from it. Like I said, leadership. I was moved on to a different shift specifically because they noticed that I was a leader and I picked up things really quickly, and I was able to take on the newer people in our department under my shift and kind of guide them. I trained them on things and answered questions, things like that. So I gained that type of skills. I like enhanced my problem solving skills and critical thinking, things that like you can't really learn in undergrad, because mostly what we do is you have an exam, mostly you memorize and then you forget it as you move on to the next topic. But here in like the real world, you actually have to like apply critical thinking, problem solving skills, and like you're not taught that, which really sucks. And I learned that the hard way, and especially in terms of like my medical school thing, taking the MCAT, which is the exam, if you don't know, that you have to take in order to enter medical school. It is straight, I wouldn't even say it's about like 90% critical thinking, 10% like actual knowledge. So I like struggle. I took it 3 times and I'm even debating taking it a 4th time, but I could not for the life of me understand why I wasn't able to, pass the exam. I was like, I know this stuff like the back of my hand. I've been studying science my entire life. Like I know that this protein does this. And I know that, like, why aren't I passing? And then eventually through the help of my sister and other mentors, I realized that I wasn't like thinking critically. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then when she explained certain ways to like view passages or view questions and see how they were like trying to trick you, I was like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe I didn't realize that. But it's not my fault. You don't learn that in school. They just tell you, okay, you need to learn these reagents for orgo, and then that's it. You take the test, you move on, and like you never visit it again in life. So I say all that to say, take jobs that can help you enhance or even learn new skills that you can use for your further career, like further on in your actual career. So I wouldn't think that I would be able to learn to critically think and problem solve, being in a lab, but I was able to do that, so much so that like people come to me asking me questions, and I've only been there like 2 years or whatever, and I'm able to like do like that. And even if I don't know the answer, I'm able to figure out the answer within a few minutes because I've enhanced my like problem solving skills and stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend a job that does this thing for you. And, speaking on to, I think Angie had said something like, you need to don't take no for an answer. Like if you have a certain career or a certain thing path in your life that you want to obtain, like you need to do whatever it takes to do it. Every job I've taken on, I've done it because I know that I need it in order to become a physician. And one of the reasons I left AZ is because there was an issue of not allowing me to like study for the MCAT, and I just had to decide like what's important. And I was like, I'm not gonna let anything stop me from becoming a physician. So I had to leave that company and move on to a different company. So do what you have to do for your job, and not for your job, for your career and for what's going to make you happy in life. Science has always been my goal, but to be a physician has been my main goal. And so I didn't let anything stop me. I took on what I could take. Any opportunity that presented itself to me, I took it. Even being shadowing a physician at an office. I didn't make money. I didn't do anything, but he literally would quiz me and ask me, like, in front of the patient, oh, what do you think this patient has? And I learned so much just from doing stuff like that. So, you know, do what you have to do, because it's gonna like pay off in the long run.
Yeah, and I think Lark makes, sorry, I just want to add on to what you said about yourself. So I did say I got laid off, and I got laid off as a younger person. And again, I went to school before Y2K happened. So I'm in the middle range right now. The dot-com bubble was a thing when I was, young. But when I got laid off, that taught me that the only person looking out for you is you, going back to the company, right? Whoever you work for, ultimately, the company's gonna look out for the company. You have to look out for yourself, and whatever that is. And it's not being disloyal. It's not being anything like that. It's just, both sides need to understand that it's business, right? You have to do what's right for you and your business as yourself, and the company's got to do what they need to do. If they let you go, it's not a personal attack. That they were just letting a bunch of people go. It's kind of like people can take it very personally, but it's not personal. It's literally just business and trying to survive as well. And, as Lark pointed out, you need to do what's right for you to survive as well. And that's something that don't take. And success, what was I gonna say? Having failure helps you understand success. If you always succeed, you don't really. I think you succeed more with the more you fail, and you can deal with failure, right? And I say failure as a word because getting laid off, people can say, "Oh, it's fail, I failed." But it's not failure. It's a setback, but it's more about how you can overcome that. That's going to help you out throughout your career, and people will see that. Like, I'll tell Lark what my friend tells me about that. Welcome to the A team when people start going to you for everything. So, it's like almost everybody, and Andrea's like, they get for jobs because, it's kind of like they know you're a person that can deliver certain things. And that's a good thing to have. And a lot of times when I've talked to, I did get an MSMBA from Hopkins as well. And as part of that, I interviewed different CFOs and CEOs of different companies. And the biggest thing was about failing. Like their biggest success story was the fact that how you fail and how you deal with failure is the biggest thing that led them to move up in their careers. And I think Andrea, you're as your own business person, that's something that's very scary. And she took that risk, even knowing that she could fail, but she still took that risk to try that. And not that I'm saying you're going to fail, just sorry, I didn't mean to imply that. But I'm just saying, don't be afraid of failure. I think a lot of times we're afraid to fail, even in our jobs. Like I see people in my job right now that the PM's like, oh, we got to do this. And I'm like, but you're giving them a crap system just to complete a timeline. It's kind of like, we need to take into account what's more important, quality or just meeting the deadline. So I'll stop there, but go ahead.
And don't be afraid to pivot either, right? I mean, yes, Lark sounds like she really wants to be a doctor, and that's wonderful. And it sounds like she's had the experiences to know that she wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if you think I'm reading this book, it's called Designing Your Life. And it talks about like, go and shadow that person even if you're not getting paid. See if this is something that you actually want to do with your entire life before you make those giant decisions and then you end up looking back when you're 40 saying, what the hell did I do for the last 20 years?
How did I get here?
Why am I here? I'm not happy. And don't be afraid to pivot later in life. And it's okay to do that. I've actually been looking into possibly going to law school here soon, and it's I'm what you could call successful. I mean, I'm doing well, and I have my own business, and things are going well. And my husband said, if you decide to quit, it's not because you failed; it's because you just decided to quit. And so, like, don't be afraid of making one choice and having to stick with it until you're 70 years old. Like it would be great if you loved it and that was, what you wanted to do with your whole life. But on the other hand, if you know that it's not, fulfilling that inner part of yourself, it's okay to look for something new and to take risks.
Yeah, and a quick add-on to that, success is how you define it. Other people can't define success for you. I don't want to be CEO of a pharmaceutical company. That's something I would never want to do, right? Those people exist, and I don't want to go up the ladder that high. So I know in my personal job, I'm not going to continue to become Pascal, right? That is not my life's goal. That is not, and that doesn't mean I'm not successful, because I haven't reached this level. You have to understand what success means to you. And ultimately that's what brings you fulfillment, makes you happy. What drives you is success. Is that don't let other people define success for you or tell you that because you haven't done this or you're not a doctor yet, Lark, you're not successful. No, that's not true. Lark took a path to become a doctor and she's doing it her way. Doesn't mean that, and Andrea as a business person and myself, because like I said, I'm in IT, who would have thought that was a thing. So success is what you define for yourself, and that could change. As Andrea said, that can change. We evolve as people as we get older. As I keep saying, I'm older, but I have a lot more experience now and that I wish I had when I was 20, because I would have made different choices. But I don't regret it. But it's kind of like, and I have made specific. I took a job as a contractor, which was scary, right? When I went into what was MedImmune, now AZ. I went from being a full-time employee, which again I knew wasn't, a commitment from the company, but being a contractor, being my, not, under a company was a scary thing. But I knew that that's what I had to do to get into IT. Because at that point I knew I wanted to move into IT, but without an IT background, how am I going to do that? And so I found this opportunity to start that by becoming a contractor and contracting into companies versus trying to just apply directly into an IT position, which I didn't have the background for. So that's what I want to say about what, adding on to Andrea about pivoting, and success is what you make it, not what, don't let other people define success for you. Because having, back to Andrea's, but my family, I was the first one to go to college and I didn't know what's going on, and things like that. And there's a lot of other people trying to tell me as a young person what success was. And I had to learn that success is what I say it is, not what you say it is. So.
Yeah, and to piggyback off both of them, I think in our field, especially when you're still in college, a lot of people tell us like, oh, you're in the science field, you'll be fine. There's plenty of jobs and you'll be successful and you'll make this much money. And not to say that that's not true, but it's definitely not that easy. And like all three of us have been saying, there's always going to be bumps on the road. It's never just, oh, I'm a biology major, I'm going to graduate and be a scientist, or I'm going to graduate and be a regulatory person, or I'm going to graduate and be a physician. I don't think I know a single person who's been in the science field who easily went in and out and got to where exactly they wanted to be. Like there's always going to be bumps in the road. And like Angie was saying, like, don't measure your success with your engineer friend who, took 4 years and became an engineer and is making 6 figures. Don't compare your success to, a lawyer who graduated, went to law school for 2 more years, and now they're in their field. Like as the science major and whatever it is, you're going to have to go up and down, but you're going to get where you want to go if you put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the research, and you still keep that passion. And like Andrea said, like sometimes you realize through certain jobs, oh, I actually don't want to be a doctor, or I actually don't want to do this. And that's okay. But once you find that job or that field where you kind of like, ooh, I don't dread going to work every day, or ooh, this kind of like makes me happy, then, push that, keep pushing it. Like every job I've had, and I keep always saying, oh, I took this job, but I didn't mention, my first job was Taco Bell. And then my next job was working at the mall, like FYE. I don't know if you know what that store is, but none of those jobs like piqued my interest. The only job where I felt like I'm really, really happy and I didn't dread going to work was when I was a medical scribe. Like when I was in the hospital, like attached to the hip to a doctor. And that's when I was like, all right, I know that I'm on the right path and this is exactly what I want to do. Now I just got to do what I have to do to get there. And what that means for me was taking the exam multiple times, applying to the school multiple times, still getting rejected, and still being like, okay, what do I need to do better when I apply again? And just doing that. So it's going to suck sometimes, and it's going to feel shameful and sad when you look at other people and they seem to be doing better. But just know that if you're still on that path to what you're trying to get to, you're successful and you're doing good and you're going to be okay. It may not take 2 years like your engineer friend, but you'll get there.
Yeah, and I'd also add on to not let people discount your dreams or your goals. When I was running for office, like my parents, like, why would you want to do that? And everyone, like, why would you want to do that? Like, you're just going to put yourself out there and people are going to be rude and blah, 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 blah. Like, but it's like, you're right. Like, that's going to be hard and it's going to, I might fail and I might, but that's what I want to do. So, when I was growing up, I was looking to go to med school and my dad was like, you don't have the vocabulary to be in med school. Not, hey, let me get you a tutor so you can learn more, so you can get to med school. It's just like, you don't have the, and so like, and I make my parents actually, they're great. They're very supportive. But it's like sometimes the people closest to you can say the things that stick with you the longest. And then it's like, when I got to OChem and I wasn't doing very well, I was like, oh, well, maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I should not, do that. And, let's go this other way. But just kind of take it obviously with a grain of salt, and if that's really what you want to do, keep working until you get there. Take the exam several times, take OChem 4 times if you need to, do whatever it takes to get what you want, but don't always, don't let other people crap on your dreams either.
And I'm going to insert myself there to just put in a shameless plug for a mentor, because part of what a mentor can do is be that outside person. Your family, even if they're super supportive and positive, they have some kind of emotional tie to a certain outcome for you. So having a mentor who is just meeting you now where you are and is interested in where you want to go and how she can be part of those steps with you, that's what we try to do by matching a mentor and a mentee. So having that outside person who isn't like, well, remember when you were 12 and you said you were going to be an astronaut, you're always having silly dreams. Now you're going to be what, like, they mean well, and they, but to have that outside person who just, there's no emotional baggage for him or her. You want success. They have something that may help you reach that success. They offer an opportunity, you take advantage of it, and have that person. So I do encourage you, of course, through Woman to Woman Mentoring's Women in STEM program, we can offer you a mentor, but just to find them in your schooling and your education, and then to be that person for someone. And Lark, you're already experiencing, you don't have to be at the highest level in the organization to be able to help someone who's coming up also. So just to, when you have expertise and experience and encouragement, to offer it to someone, and when you need it, to seek it out at any point in your career, as Angie was saying. So I really do want to plug that. Sometimes it might be an instructor or an employer or somebody else that you work with, and it might just be that outside person who just, has some background knowledge of it, but is just interested in helping you achieve success, whatever that means to you. So does anyone have like a real, specific tactical kind of how-to or advice on, students are entering their semester break pretty soon. They're going to have, at least a month. Some schools I know are extending their breaks. They're going to have several weeks where they're kind of on this downtime. And then spring semester, who knows what that's going to look like. But any advice on what they can be doing over this break and or in that next semester to really help themselves stand out, or to kind of move themselves along so that when things are, normal-er, they can, bust right into action. Any tips on that?
Yeah, I definitely have some tips. Like anyone who's, trying to get into the field like me, medicine in particular, and maybe as anyone else could take from this too, but if you're looking to be in medicine, any downtime is time you can be using to make your application and yourself look better. And also just to see like if this is still for you and like what specialty like you're interested in. So during my downtimes, like during winter break and spring break, I would shadow a doctor. And I met him through my uncle. I wanted to shadow my uncle, but his hospital wasn't allowing that. So he had a friend who had his own practice who said, yes, like she can come shadow me. So like during my breaks, I would go shadow him. And like I was saying earlier, like I learned so much. Like I was able to be in the room with patients and the doctor would be like, okay, listen to the story. And then while the patient's there, he'd be like, okay, what do you think he has? Or give me like some differential diagnoses. I'd be like this. He'd be like, okay, like that sounds good. Now what would you do next? And I'd be like, order labs. He's like, okay, what labs would you order? And he'll be like, why? So you do things like that. And like, you can explain that in your application or explain that to an employer and that'll make you look good. They'll be like, wow, you were able to do that just in like 5 weeks of winter break. So you can do things like that, or you can get into research. Having a publication is something that not that many people, even people like way in their careers, don't have. So if you can somehow find a position where you're a research assistant and you did one little thing that gets your name on a publication, that's going to set you far apart from everybody else. So, yes, take time to like rest, but also use a little bit of that time to make yourself better. If I could go back on things, I started, not, I wouldn't say too late, but I didn't start to like actually do things career centered until my junior year. And just think back, if I like me, someone was speaking to me like this, I would have started freshman year. Like my resume would be way more popping than it is, even though my resume is popping, but it'd be even more popping. So just like use your networking skills. Like you don't know who knows who. It doesn't even be that actual person. They might know a guy who knows a guy that can get you into something. Like I didn't know anybody, but I was able to get it from babysitting. I was able to get it from talking to an uncle who knew somebody. So, don't sit there, like start using your phone, get on social media and figure out what you can do. The smallest thing will help and start to build your repertoire.
That's great advice. And part of that, and tying in with something Andrea was saying a minute ago, part of that is being able to say, like, this is what I want. And so when you find someone, someone comes across your path or someone connects you with someone, or you're just kind of searching on social media or otherwise, to be able to confidently say, I want to go to med school. I want to be a physician. Here are the types of support or help or encouragement or connections that I'm looking for, and to ask for those things. So, if you're used to or afraid of people kind of putting down your dreams or sharing their not very helpful unsolicited feedback, or families who they've kind of maxed out what they can offer you if they didn't go to college or didn't move into those kind of professional jobs. Sometimes it can be hard to just kind of own that and say, like, here's what I want to do. I want to get a master's degree, or I want to go to med school, or I want to work in this field. And so being able to practice that and really be confident in asking for that, so that when you find those connections, you can put it out there and make that good first impression of, wow, this person really cares about this, knows about it, isn't just waiting for me to kind of do this thing for her. But you've all kind of mentioned in some way of like being able to present yourself of like, here's what I'm looking to do, here's how I'm going to connect with people who could be part of that. So I think that's great advice, Lark, and very relevant to what students can be doing right now. So thank you for that. Angie or Andrea, any tips and tricks on that?
I would also say to not be afraid to, like, if you don't have any experience, it's okay, because someone's got to give you the opportunity to get that experience.
Right, you got to start somewhere.
And so, like, I had aunt of someone reach out to me. She's actually in high school, and said, hey, do you have anything? She's trying to get an honor society. It needs 9 hours of work. 9 hours, that's kind of a weird number, but okay. And so, I actually had a project that really didn't take a lot of, background in a lot of anything. And so I said, sure, let's do it. And so just, use your family might know people, they might not, reach out to anybody and ask for volunteer work. Especially right now, there's a lot of people who need help with things and they can't pay for it because the economy is down. So if you're willing to do it for free and just say, hey, I'm really interested in X, do you have anything I can do to help you out, while I'm home, whether it be nonprofit work or who knows. And there's a lot of nonprofits that you wouldn't think are nonprofits also that do work that are science related, or, and so just ask and call up your chamber of commerce and say, hey, I'm a student and I was wondering if there's anybody in this area. There's a lot of people out there who want to help you get connected. And your colleges usually have people, and they might not know of a specific thing that you can do, but they might know people who are like, oh yeah, I kind of know someone who does that. And maybe, and even if it's just having coffee with someone who someone that's a lawyer and you're thinking about going to law school, sit down and have a coffee, have a conversation. You don't even have to follow their work or look at their work or do anything with their work. Just say, what does your day-to-day look like? And is that something that I want to do? Most people out there are willing to help you, figure it out. And so I would really look for volunteer opportunities, and don't be afraid to say, I don't really know what I'm doing, but here's where I'm going. And is there anything you can give me to work on? And it's like, or papers to read or a book. Like, is there anything you can recommend? It doesn't even have to be specific work related, but is there something that I can read or do during this time to help me? And if they have something that you can actually physically do, it looks really great on your resume later.
Yes. Yeah, great. Excellent advice. Thank you, Andrea. Angie, anything to add on there?
Yeah, I'm gonna go the more not traditional route, but I think one of the things that I've seen a lot happen is there are opportunities at companies. I know now that everyone knows I work at AZ. AZ does have opportunities for people, but you have to look for them way before they start. So you really need to start at the beginning of the year to think, kind of like when you're at college. You at the beginning of the year start thinking about what you're going to do when you finish. So don't wait until you graduate to then try to look for an opportunity. Start looking for at different companies, different sites, what they might have available, internships or other things that they going on. There are a lot of companies that do that. Some of them are paid, some of them are not paid, depending on what you want to do. But also that's another avenue if you want to go that route. I guess my advice is to start earlier than you think you should be, because usually people start and it's gone. The window has closed, even though it's something that's going to happen a year from now. They've already picked everybody that's going to start a year from now. So just as an aside, beyond all the other great advice that Lark and Andrea gave, if you do want to get into a more more formalized opportunity, you need to start earlier looking for those if you want those.
Yeah, I would say too, though, if you can't find something in your field,
right,
just go volunteer somewhere. You're going to learn something, and you're going to learn probably a lot of leadership skills that you won't get at a job that is actually in your field, because you're just going to be doing you're running for coffee or whatever. But if you're plugged into like an actual, like a soup kitchen or something like that, you'd be amazed at the actual experience that you'll have. And it looks really good. Well, obviously you want to do it for other reasons, but it also looks really good to say that you went out and you volunteered and you were helping the community. And being community focused is actually something that people look for, especially when you're looking for your first job, because they know you're not going to have any professional experience unless it's an internship or whatever. But going out and actually taking the time to spend it in your community and to actually make something happen is important.
Great. So what I'm definitely hearing as a theme today, but especially in that last part of the conversation, is a really bad idea would be to do nothing, right? Be stagnant, wait for something to fall in your lap, wait for the universe to arrange itself directly in front of you. It sounds like you all have had great examples of you took a risk, you tried something, you called someone, you reached out in some way. When someone encouraged you, someone with some knowledge encouraged you or said, hey, I think you'd be great at this, you checked it out and you gave it a chance and took opportunities when you found them, and took advantage of things that were offered to you as well. So I really think that is an important part of not just like, well, it'll just happen if it's meant to happen, but that you really have to take some responsibility and take charge of your path and your career. And yes, that path may change and the way you need to take charge of it may change based on those decisions. But again, whether you're starting or changing along the way, it's not about like, it will just come to me. And, but so even what you guys are advising during this break of be active, learn, connect, find opportunities. I think that's great advice throughout, and really taking charge so that people are feeling like they've got some hand in this and responsibility for their futures instead of just kind of like waiting to see what happens. So, and yeah, Angie, start early. We hear that all the time of like, oh, hey, summer internships, you should be looking for those in February. And that might even be late, and the grad school process and any of the other professional schools, Lark, I'm sure you've experienced that. Like the process is long and you can't start like, hey, right now, I think I'll go to medical school in for the next semester. That's just not the way it works. So do your research, plan ahead, ask a lot of questions. Yes, Andrea.
Another thing I'll throw in there, if you can't find anything to do, Khan Academy or something similar, you can still learn stuff. So they have an LSAT program that you can pretty much like go to the pathway, and it'll like give you all this stuff. You can do practice tests and whatnot. So yeah, if you're looking to, they have anything from kindergarten through, astrophysics and just crazy. So yeah, it's just something, if you can't find an actual thing to do outside your home and you want to build some sort of skill set. My son is on there learning how to code. So yeah, they have a lot of cool stuff to do. So just, there's another thing that you can kind of get some skill set that doesn't necessarily mean going somewhere and doing something.
Right. And as we're thinking of all these different ways that we can kind of enhance our learning, give us new experiences, also keep track of them. When you're starting to build your resume and applications for scholarships or internships or jobs or schools or whatever, you won't just remember all those things that you sought out or were offered and took advantage of. So keep a document somewhere that you're kind of keeping track of these opportunities, even if it was just a few weeks over a semester break, or you're published somewhere, you partnered or collaborated with someone or did some volunteer work for an organization or a small business or whatever, but keeping track of those things so that when it's time to show all the ways you've been involved in your community and show all the ways that you've used your time productively, you've got that list growing. So I'm glad you guys all kind of prompted that of like, there are lots of things to do, but then to be able to also record them and explain how they've been useful to you. So great. So we are just over an hour. We've got just a few minutes left. Anyone else with some kind of general advice to college age women or anything, parting thoughts to share before we wrap up?
I would just say, just good luck and keep going. Don't let anyone, I think someone already said this, like deter you and make you feel like you can't do this because of this or that. Like I was super, super non-traditional. I went to a college and then I transferred and like half my credits didn't transfer. So I was told I was going to graduate like a year or two late. And I was like, no. So I busted my butt and I graduated on time. And then even during that time, I was told, oh, my grades weren't even terrible. Like I was still a 3.0 and above person. They're like, oh, you should probably look into something besides medical school. And I was like, no, this is what I want to do. So this is what I'm going to do. And like me now, like I'm applying, I've already heard back from certain schools on some, like I moved up in the process. And in the meantime, I was able to gain so much experience that I never thought I could do. So I know this field is like one of the hardest fields to be in. Like physics sucks, orgo sucks, but once you get through it, and I say that to say like I failed physics 2 once, I had to retake it. I failed orgo 1, had to retake it, failed orgo 2, had to retake it. I still graduated above a 3.0, still able to apply to medical school, still able to graduate on time. So don't think that like being a science person means you have to be super smart and it's this straight path and it's this and that. It's literally a bumpy road, and there are people like you who failed a class and is struggling or has struggled but still made it out on top. Like I'm literally that person. And if you want to hear more, like you can email. My email is literally my first and last name at gmail.com. Like I'll be that person to tell you, yeah, it wasn't easy and I wasn't that straight A student, but I got it. I got through it and I like dominated, and I'm still dominating now. So even if you're on your floor watching this crying because you're setting the finals, you're gonna get through it and you're gonna do amazing. And the science field is so vast and there's so many cool things to do. You can be in the regulatory field, you can be creating medicine, you can be researching for medicine or for diseases. Even now with COVID, you can get into like COVID, just doing like clinical trials and things like that. So just stay on it. If this is something that really interests you, just keep pushing, and like things will happen. Things, even if it's hard, it's still gonna happen, and it's gonna be fun. And there's not a field like science, in my opinion. I think science is just awesome. And if you stick to it, you'll see that too.
Great advice. Thank you, Lark. Anybody else? Parting thoughts?
Sorry, I was gonna make sure my cat wasn't yelling in the background first before I unmuted. Yeah, I think what Lark said is important, is good, and yeah, I agree. Science is great, all kinds of science, because science is not just biology; it's engineering. It's all the STEM, right? What we call STEM, and science can also lead you to IT. Besides all the other ones, all the traditional ways. And I think another thing is, I think another key thing that I learned was, there's something somebody told me once. So I would go into the bathroom at work and cry sometimes because I was, I'll admit, I've done that. And actually, if you look at the studies, like 60% of people have done that in actuality. And one of the best advice that I got from a coworker one time is because like, I don't want to cry, when something was, going on at work. And she said to me that tears are liquid stress. And that totally changed my view on the fact that I'm a crier. At times I can cry. it's not a weakness. It's just, literally it is stress relief. It is it's cathartic, get stuff out. So through this journey, you're going to find low points and you're going to come out of them again. We all, even myself, there's days, especially with COVID, that I'm like, what the heck is going on in this world? And I feel sad, but then I come out of it again, right? So it's not like we're all here successful and we're just happy all the time. That doesn't happen. We go through our ups and downs, and we just need to understand that it's going to happen to you. Even if you're doing your favorite job, you can still have a bad day. It's kind of like things happen, and just to not feel like you're not making it if you do get sad, or you're stressed, or you're not able to handle something. Sometimes you just need to take a break and walk away from it and then come back again. Allow yourself to feel your feelings and don't discount them, because we are human beings, and this world, especially 2020, is a great year for this. Things happen and we just need to roll with it, or but allow yourself to cry, or whatever you need to do to get it out. Don't feel like you need to push that down and never show that, and find somebody to help you with that as well. That's having a network of people that will support you when you're crying in the bathroom is great. So that'd be my point. Just understand that it's not all unicorns and cupcakes and rainbows.
Yes, great point, Angie.
I've never had a cupcakes and rainbows kind of day. I wish. Yeah, but I would say be curious and be vulnerable are my two things. Vulnerable at the right times, obviously, but having that ability will help you build relationships. It'll help you be real with people, and that is warmth. And it goes a lot farther than people want to make you think that it does. Something that was not still working on. And so it was one of those things where you felt like you always had to be strong, but vulnerability really opens up a lot of doors, because that's the way that you can connect to the person who you need to connect with, for whatever reason, whether that be personal or professional. I found vulnerability works really well in marriage too, just in case you're wondering. And then curiosity, obviously, just because you never stop learning, and once you stop learning, you're pretty stagnant. So really asking the questions why, and it's okay to not know everything and not know what's going on, and to show that you don't know. Sometimes it's better to ask than to pretend like you do know and then move on. A lot of people say fake it till you make it, which at some points you do have to do, but it's also good to realize when you don't know what you don't know, and figure it out. The last thing I would say is sleep. Sleep is important. So do it.
Full thought there. Yes. Do it. Okay, excellent. Thank you to the three of you. I really appreciate your time today. I know I enjoyed myself. I'm really excited to get to send this video out to our students, and I think I'm going to encourage them to share it with their friends also, because I know that there just are not that many opportunities that you get to be just in a kind of a room full of STEM women. So we try to offer that even in these virtual formats when we can. So thank you all for your time, for sharing your stories and experiences. I can't wait to see what you guys do next. Maybe we'll do a recap of, or not a recap, but a re-meet of this in a few months and see what everybody's up to, because I think your stories are so interesting and so different, and no one is done. None of you was like, oh yeah, this is the thing I'm going to do forever now. In fact, I think you've all mentioned like whatever the next thing may be and whenever that may happen. So thank you again. And again, everyone, students, this is from Woman to Woman Mentoring's Women in STEM Mentorship Program. Mentors are available to students, and you can check out our website for the application and that process. So thank you to everyone. I'm going to stop this recording now. Thank you, everybody.